Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Politically Incorrect Knitters. I am Deplorable Knitter. I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Ann Pinkava. Hi, Ann.
Hello.
And this week, we have a special guest. We are joined by Marta Lopez with Starseed Yarn. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on here.
We're very excited to talk to you. Marta has had an interesting journey, and I think she's our first person who, I don't know if you've come over from the other side or politics have definitely been changing for you recently, and we're really interested to see how that went, how that happened.
Yes. So I have made the biggest mistake in life in thinking that if I ignore politics, politics will ignore me and leave me alone. Well, in 2020, that was the biggest slap in my face ever. And I learned that, wow, if I'm not involved, then, this is what happens. And I think that's kind of what happened to the world is politics became this ugly game that nobody wanted to be a part of. And we felt that if we just ignored it, we wouldn't be a part of the corruption and a part of, all the bad things that come along with politics. So when 2020 happened, that was a big eye opener. And being in the knitting community actually has forced me to get educated in politics because I saw a lot of strange things happening within the knitting community.
Which is such a funny thing too, because I mean, our show, we have a lot of knitting and politics, and we've had people say like, well, why does knitting have to be political? It's like, no. We didn't start from our show started, but we personally in the knitting world didn't start as political knitters. It's just knitters, right. And just the politics were seeped in first. So.
Our show is in a response to what's been going on, not because we had this burning desire to be like super political. It just, everybody's so outspoken on the other side that we felt like they needed to have a voice. And
I have a theory that the knitting community is it has been completely infiltrated, and it is completely it's an indoctrination group because it hits every creed, every color, every background, every ethnicity, every culture, every country. There's not one group of people out there that doesn't have fiber arts or fiber techniques in their realm.
Right.
So I believe the knitting community has been infiltrated very hard.
Yeah.
And I started seeing certain speech happening within the knitting community. I started seeing ideologies being pushed on people. And there are very specific knitters leading these talks. And so I took a step back and really started paying attention to these specific knitters who had a lot to say, who had, 20,000 plus followers. And then when the conversation happened, the one about Trump happened, I fell for it. I was like, wow, I didn't pay attention to politics. So whatever I saw on the media, I believed. Trump is racist. He's this and that. He's basically responsible for everything bad in the world, including your personal problems. And so I thought, wow, this is really strange. Like, I'm not letting this man control me. And what he does doesn't necessarily personally affect me. Well, going back to politics not affecting me, well, it does. So I was just like most people. I hated Trump because nobody likes a racist, right? You put that label on somebody, we're going to back away slowly, and we don't want to be affiliated, and we're even going to start being against that person, right? So that's where I was. And then I thought I was doing my social justice services, with, Trump's a racist, and unfollowing people who supported Trump. And then I started seeing the people, not just what they're being labeled as. I started seeing different designers and knitters and dyers being labeled. And I thought, well, they're not actually like that though. So why are they all of a sudden put in this category? And so that's when I started to really think for myself instead of just listen to the 5 specific knitters that were putting out these.
But it's really interesting because, like you said, nobody wants to be associated with a racist. So the minute that like Ravelry decided to call all the Trump supporters, you know, racist and white supremacists, nobody wants to be associated with that. And I understand why people put up their statements. I stand with Ravelry. Thanks for keeping us safe. Keep
Right.
whatever the sentiment was, because I think people genuinely at their core want to be nice people. They want to be kind to each other. They don't want to hate each other. And so when you
This
put
is
it
why
like
we're
that,
here.
yeah,
This is exactly why we're here, is because innately human beings are good-natured people. And so they're strumming on our feelings right now. I
yeah,
mean, we are getting played like a guitar here, people. You know, everybody is innately good-natured. So we're all going to want to do the right thing. But if we're told this specific thing is the right thing and this only, and everything else is wrong, that is dangerous. And
yeah,
and that's, it's amazing that people can't see through this, you know.
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
another thing I noticed was that these specific knitters were very young. Some of them, sorry, some are very young, very inexperienced in life. And they were trying to convince me that I'm oppressed and that my life in the United States has been horrible, and I can't gain access to anything, and I can't be a successful person. I can't have anything. And the people that were telling me this were highly educated, college educated, had career jobs, you know, and I thought, how are these people oppressed? And why are they telling me I'm oppressed? Because I am actually a Vietnamese refugee immigrant. I know about oppression and communism. So that's when I was like, whoa, wait a minute, something funky is happening here, you know? So
Yep.
that's when I started really looking at these people who are dictating these ideologies about socialism. And I noticed the wordings too. It was very manipulative. It was like, you know, I I didn't go to college, so I'm not articulate in that manner, but they were very, you know, they were very articulate in their wording, very educated, and tried to make you feel completely stupid if you don't follow what they say.
Right.
So
Right.
I was
And at
like,
the same time, you have to use the right words on the right
yes,
week as going forward, and you have to update your buzzwords constantly.
yes, yes, you hit that too, Anna. And then, so when, sorry, going back, I'm
Oh,
might
go
be
on.
jumping around because so much has happened. So when the conversation happened, I made my own post about, you know, white supremacy and knitting, and how, um, you know, Black and brown people weren't getting a space or getting recognized in the knitting world. Well, actually we were, because I've actually never been more accepted in any other group except for knitting. And, you know, it's weird, but it was mostly white women that were more open to me than people of my own race. Or, you know, I felt like I was being more judged by people of my own race because I had to hold certain words, or like you said, you have to hit certain marks with them for them to recognize you. And so when I did write my one post about that, I must have hit like a bunch of the right marks, because I gained like 1,000 followers overnight.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, that's weird. So you have to write certain words and you'll gain followers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also noticed that when I didn't make posts that hit the words, I would lose followers. So every day I was losing followers. And I thought, that's weird. Okay, so they just followed me for one post and then are unfollowing me. So that's how I learned about bots.
I don't know. There's a certain, I guess you would say, addiction among certain people that is like, okay,
Yes,
you're
yes,
posting about social justice now. It's like, well, I want that good social justice content. Well, my life's not all about social content, so why am I here?
yeah,
Or that there's certain accounts that do very well on who do we hate this week, And who am I offended for is more how it would be twisted. That this is the new person who is horrible, or this is the new issue to be concerned about, or stuff like that. Or how do you be the good person this week? Hate this guy. You know.
Right.
So sorry.
So when the Ravelry ban happened, you were supportive of it because Trump's a racist, so obviously you don't like racists, right? So that makes sense.
So I thought I was doing my part, and then 2020 happened, and that's when I really learned about Donald Trump and his whole position, and that he's not a racist. And I actually learned about policies, which most people have zero clue about, which now I feel like you should take a test before you should be even allowed to vote, because why are you voting when you don't even know anything about politics? You know what I mean? Everybody's voting on emotions and celebrity endorsement. So after I learned about, Trump, and all my neighbors are Trump supporters, and I live in one of the most diverse places in California. I live in Riverside, California. We have the highest population is white, but following it very closely behind is Black, Hispanic, and Asians. Black, Hispanic, and Asians make up 60% of the population here. We're so diverse. We have an awesome community here. My neighbors are Black, brown, yellow, like we're all across the board, and we're all mixed, and it's such a diverse community. And they're trying to tell me my neighbors are racist. I mean, I had liberal friends come on and tell me that, actually, they asked me if I support Trump, and if I did, or if I'm Christian even, that they're going to unfriend me right now. And so that was another thing that threw me, that was like a huge red flag, was that people were going on the BLM website, and there was like a list of things that they posted that if anybody followed those things, they must unfriend them. And one of them was being a Christian. And so I thought, wow, this is really, really getting weird now. So they're attacking faith and God. Yeah. So that's when it really became clear to me what BLM really stands for. Because I was even like, Black Lives Matter for a second there, Then of course, Black Lives Matter. All lives matter to me. And what I thought was happening was, we were standing in solidarity of our Black brothers and sisters, but not with BLM. No, that is an evil entity disguised as something good.
Right. And even in the name, it's like, well, who could disagree with saying that Black Lives Matter? Of course they do. It's like, that again with the, well, I don't want to be called one of those racist Trump supporters. Well, I don't want to seem to say that Black lives don't matter.
It's a lot of the way they use their words, and they use certain, you can't really disagree that Black Lives Matter. You can't really, like I said before, you don't want to be called a racist. You don't want to, they play on your sympathies to get people to go along with these schemes that really are pretty crazy. And like, Anna is always talking about the Black Lives Matters website, that it talks about like, you got to break down the nuclear family, and like you said, you don't want to have Christians, and you don't want to, because those people, if you have a nuclear family and you believe in God, then you have something else to answer to. You have a support system. You don't need them in your life. And that's really what they want. They want to break that all down so that they can fill the void.
And also considering how liberal the Pope is right now, that Black Lives Matter, even then, not an ally.
Well, what's interesting too with all of this is that I've been anti-racist my whole life. I don't really know what any other way to be, because I'm a immigrant that came to this country as a foreigner. So I know firsthand what it's like to feel like an outsider. So I've always been anti-racist. But I've never, ever had any approach of anti-racism being brought in this way. in the cancel culture way, in the BLM way, rioting, looting, all that. My ways to racism was always just learning about everybody, learning about people's cultures, learning about people's backgrounds, and knowing that we're really not that different. And that really, I've truly never even met a racist person in my life, because after 5 minutes of talking to anybody, we find common ground.
Mhm.
And that's been my life. So when this whole Asian hate thing came out, I was like, OMG. Asian hate really in Southern California? Sorry, but Asians rule Southern California. Then I had all my liberal young nieces and nephews who are college educated all of a sudden feel like they're experiencing Asian hate and they're so oppressed. All my nieces and nephews lived on a silver platter, had everything given to them because of their immigrant parents who suffered immensely under communism. They suffered so much that they coddled their children. They coddled their children so that their children could never, ever feel that type of suffering. And now their children, all my nieces and nephew, most of them, they don't even talk to their parents because of the because of the socialism being taught as something good. And my siblings and I, who actually experienced communism and socialism, we know it's not good. So there's a divide. The only Asian hate I've felt throughout this whole thing is the divide from the indoctrination of the younger Asian people. There's no Asian hate out there. Maybe you're just an asshole and people don't like you. But there's no Asian hate out there.
You know, that's always an option you should keep open. Maybe the common link is you.
But here's the thing. I can get into a fight with somebody, and let's say I get into a fight with a white person, right? And it has nothing to do with race. We were just grabbing that last t-shirt that it was on sale, and we're fighting over it, okay?
Right.
At the end of the fight, someone might say a derogatory word, like me saying stupid honky or whatever. I just aged myself. That's the terms we used to use. Or that person might have said dumb gook, right? Did that have anything to do with race? No. That was just a heated moment, and somebody used a word to try to jab somebody and get under their skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
People need to get a little bit more critical in thinking and don't just take things for the surface of it.
Right.
You might be called a name, but is that really truly like where the jab is, or where the initial hurt is from? No, probably not.
That's really interesting. And right now we're living in this world where words are so harmful that people have to have safe spaces to get away from them. And really, you probably just need to be called more names.
Right.
Like, honest to God.
Well, that's another thing is I grew up in the era of clowning and roasting your friends. Like, if you're going to act a fool, you're going to be called out as a fool. If you're going to act like scared chicken, we're going to call you. You know what I mean? And
right.
this generation also, it's very sad, but obviously they don't know how to self-govern themselves. That's why they need somebody else governing them. When I was growing up, if we had issues with somebody, we settle it after school at the name designated space, no grown-ups around, and it's done. One person might get a little bit hurt, scuffed up, but it's done. It's squashed. And we know, hey, if you're going to act a fool like that, you might get dealt with again. So we used to govern ourselves, and we used to just settle whatever differences and be okay as a community, as kids running around, just doing our own thing. We didn't need parents and a whole community. We don't need people to facilitate every single little thing for us. Nowadays, everything literally comes in a kit. People can't even cook anymore. It's like, I have to have a kit with 5 ingredients and just put it in this tray and stick it in the oven. Like, wow, they really don't want you to think at all. This is the world we live in. Everything is perfectly curated in a kit or your IG platform. There's no hardships whatsoever. You never need to suffer. And if you do come across anything hard, go fund me. Go fund me.
Well, It's funny that you mention your Instagram platform and that, because you guys have seen it. I have the Trump hat, the Trump one hat that I've been posting, and people are losing their minds. They're like, I don't want to see this on my knitting site. And I'm like, first off, this isn't a knitting site. You know, this is social media, right? But they've got their feed so curated that if one of my posts comes on accidentally and they have to see an idea that doesn't agree with them, they're like mad at me. What is this crap? Knitting shouldn't be political, blah, blah, blah. You guys made it political. I'm just doing my thing. Like,
right.
But you having to see it isn't the end of the world. And people just, they can't even deal with, I don't agree with you. So they, seriously, the nonsense that comes out because they had to see something they didn't like is just,
I know.
it doesn't make any sense.
I know people, there's certain phrases that I feel like this generation got skipped out on, is never bite the hand that feeds you. You don't know what you have until it's gone. And sometimes good things come out of bad shit. So don't be afraid, you know? And almost in life, bad things are a catalyst for something better. So it's almost like we're supposed to go through these bad things so that we grow up and, you know, look within ourselves, see how resilient we are, move through these things, move through wars, move through pandemics, move through natural disasters. We're capable of it. But now we're getting like put a cap on how we're allowed to move through the world and how we can deal with ourselves. It's a strange time for sure. Definitely.
But how old were you when you came here from Vietnam?
So I was actually still a baby. I was 3 months when we escaped, and we landed in the United States probably when I was about 6 or 9 months.
Okay.
So we were in Guam. We escaped on a boat. You know what? Actually, I'll show you. We escaped on a U.S. cargo ship, very much like this one. Let me see it. So this is the U.S. cargo ship that we escaped on. There was, I think it only holds like a couple hundred people, but there was like thousands of people on there, like 2,000 people.
Right.
So we escaped, and then we went to Guam, and we stayed there for, I believe, 3 to 6 months at like a tent city type thing,
Right.
until we were sponsored and brought to the US, where my family had a chance at basic human rights that we did not have in Vietnam. Socialism means everybody gets the same all across the board, right? So if you're a family of 2 or a family of 10, you all get 2 potatoes. Family of 2 gets to spread 2 potatoes across 2 people. A family of 10 gets to spread 2 potatoes across 10 people. Everything is the same across the board. So if you have a garden and your neighbor doesn't have a garden, your garden gets destroyed. Everything's the same across the board, equal, right? You only get one type of medicine, the medicine they give you. If it doesn't work, too bad. All across the board, equal socialism.
Yeah, it's too bad that all these people who think socialism is the way to go. We have a friend who was on our show who escaped communism in Laos. Her dad, they built a thing in the bottom of a boat and drugged all the kids so they wouldn't make any noise so they could get away.
Right.
And it just, there are so many stories about what is actually going on. And I know everybody says, oh, well, our communism isn't going to be that kind of communism. But I think if they knew more, if they knew that they would only get 2 potatoes no matter how many people they had to feed, it maybe it's part of the education problem. It's part of the, I don't know.
Right. Well, you said with your nieces and nephews, it's like, it's kind of like, oh, Mom, you don't know what you're talking about. We'll be better. We're going to be so smart.
That's actually verbatim what they have said. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what your experience has, what has it led for you. Like, wow, so you're dictating. It's interesting that people today like to dictate what you are, how you feel, and what you know.
Yeah, and not only that, but there's a lot of emphasis in our culture on lived experiences and sort of like, oh, well, you know, if that happens to you or whatever you feel about it kind of makes it absolutely true. But it's really weird to me that there's a certain, it's almost like you only believe in lived experiences, and therefore if something happened to you that I can't comprehend, that can't have happened. Like it's the two thoughts at once and they don't necessarily match up. That, I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but it's
No,
you know, like, oh, whatever your story is, that's your story, but I don't believe your story. But that's not but like those
right.
don't.
They don't, because there's a lot of hypocrisy in that, you know, idea, you know. But I get it a lot though. So I know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
I it just boggles my mind that your nieces and nephews don't take what you guys have experienced. Like, that's,
It's heartbreaking.
I just can't imagine being like in somebody's face going, no, that can't be right. Yeah, it's got to be awful.
Oh, so here's the thing though, and this is why they don't believe it. Because when we escaped as refugee immigrants, we were given so much opportunity here that my nieces and nephews, they don't know that we ever suffered. They only know a life of privilege. And like, seriously, like my nieces and nephews are very like, they all do not lack anything. They are all college educated. They were all like given cars when they graduated high school. Like, you know, when people are oppressed for a very long time, when they're given a chance or an opportunity, they're going to rise to the top, because my family did. We were able to open a catering business here. We catered and ran business within a Vietnamese community. It's called Little Saigon in Westminster, California. It's the largest population of Vietnamese people in all of the United States. This fortified the Vietnamese community, and it was built by an American soldier that fought in the Vietnam War, and a Vietnamese man that escaped. They were both fought in the military together on the same side, and you know, and they did like military ops together. So when they came to the States together, they made a pact. It's a beautiful story, you know, and they started opening Vietnamese businesses to supplement the community there. And so Vietnamese people have been able to flourish here in the States. There, in fact, it's funny because, and I believe it's 2019, a series on Netflix called Bling Empire was released right before 2020, when Asian oppression and hatred came about. And the Bling Empire showcases and features all these Asians that have become immensely successful in the States. Or maybe if they didn't have success here, they just come from a lot of money, but they're able to live freely and move freely within the United States, and they just have these super extravagant lives, but they're so oppressed, you know. So when Asians try to tell me that I'm oppressed or that they're oppressed, I'm just like, wow, maybe you just made some bad choices. You're not really oppressed here though, you know.
I think a lot of people do forget that they have free will, and that a lot of things that can happen to you are based on choices you make. Not everything, but for the most part, you make choices. You decide how you're going to live your life. And you can't blame anybody else for what you decide to do. Doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, let's touch on that whole thing with Black people attacking Asians. And then it turning into only, let's showcase only white crimes on Asians and calling it a racist thing. So when we first moved to the States, we lived in Lawndale, California, and you know, we didn't have money, so we lived in the poorer neighborhoods, you know. And my neighbor was also Vietnamese, and they tried to like kind of put us together, like the churches that sponsored us and helped us get on our feet and whatnot. They did try to keep us together as, so it'd be better for us as a community. So my neighbors were actually Vietnamese. And one day in the afternoon, they were getting robbed. And it was by three men. And my brother came into the incident and saw it happening. So he ended up beating up the three guys and kind of saving my neighbor from being robbed and attacked.
Wow.
So we were scared and we thought they would retaliate. We're refugees. We're still like in war mentality. So we packed up everything that night and we moved to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, where we had relatives there. And, granted, it was three Black guys that attacked, my neighbor and was robbing them. But we never once thought, oh my God, Black people are dangerous, or it's Black people attacking Asians. I never thought that. It was just like, wow, we were just in a dangerous situation. Let's get out. But now everything is emphasized on skin color, and you have to like associate a skin color with this label or that label. And
Right.
that to me is like so strange that humans are following this, because I know really mean Asians and bad Asians and good Asians too. I know bad Black people and good Black people. I know bad white people and good white. You know what I mean? Like the same all across the board. So why are we emphasizing so much on skin color, especially today when we've come such a long way?
Yeah.
But
what you're saying about the skin color and stuff is that it's so weird that when somebody's skin color doesn't fit the narrative, they won't talk about it. Oh, right. If it turns out that it was like Black on Black crime, then we're just not going to mention that. We're just going to mention that a crime happened. But if it's a white guy and then the Black guy, let's make sure we talk about how bad white people are.
Right.
Like they use it, but again, only when it fits their narrative.
Exactly. Which I don't mind us talking about, like, the white on Black crimes, because obviously the United States isn't perfect, and we do have, our issues here. But are they the issues that are being put out there? No, definitely not. We've come such a long way.
Yeah.
We've come such a long way in the United States, and we are not just, white people in the United States. I mean, I've been here for 47 years. I see the United States as, like we're variegated, like the yarn. We're different colors and variations of everything. And that's what makes this country so great. That's what I love about this country. And I've lived in other places. You don't see every single color, down the block in other countries. If you go to another country, you do not see diversity like you see here. Maybe in some parts of Canada. But, it's not like the United States. So I don't know why. It's just really sad that people just want to destroy this country. And instead of, hey, if you do feel like we do have issues here, let's address those issues. Not like cancel people and get in people's faces. I mean, when has that ever been effective? Forcing people or bullying people into submission. That's never been effective. And like I said, I've been anti-racist my whole life, and I've never approached it like this. I sang in a reggae band. We were trying to spread peace and love, one love. We're all the same. We're brothers and sisters. We're one human family. And even my friends that were on that tip, like a lot of friends that I grew up with, they've all fell on that fear wagon. They listen to the CDC now. And I grew up with anti-government people. I grew up with people that were totally conscious of all this stuff. So it's not surprising when I see a vast majority of people just following orders, because when you see strong people, when you see people who actually had convictions and had like a message and a purpose fall and bend and cower, of course the masses are going to do that, So now's the time just to kind of just stand stronger in your boots, because they're trying to knock people like us out now. The sheeple is easy. That's like little effort, But for us, it takes a lot. And that's why all this censorship, all this labeling of racism, all this, it's so much too. You know what I mean? And if people could just understand that there are people in the world that will never falter, you won't be compromised. no matter what names you call us, you know, what box you put us in, there's people that know themselves, that know God, and that will always stand in the truth. We're all one family. We're all brothers and sisters. That's what I'm here for.
Awesome.
That is very cool. So,
and I'm going to cancel my Ravelry account. Now that I'm, you know, because I didn't really think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was the catalyst to splitting, you know, the knitting community, my beloved knitting community, my once beloved knitting community. You know, in 2016 was when I actually learned how to knit, and I was welcomed. You know, it was such a great community, and you know, people were helping me like learn to knit, and anytime I had a problem, there was, you know, limitless numbers of people that would help me. And now it's like, it's scary. I haven't dyed yarn in over a year. You know, I put my post, I finally got brave enough, because once, you know, the wording started happening, and you had to be careful with what you say. You might say the wrong word. You might, you know, even just not being a very great grammar person, I might, you know, upset somebody, you know? So I noticed that I started becoming more quiet, and that's not really me. So that's when I decided, you know what? I want all the liberal indoctrinated knitters to not follow me anymore, so I don't have to feel scared of them. Or not scared, because, you know, not scared of them. I just don't want their energy around me. And it's because they're so hypocritical, it's exhausting.
No, but I totally understand that.
Yeah.
That it is that sort of worry that you're going to say something and it's going to be mean comment after mean comment.
Right.
Yeah. And
so,
I mean, on one hand, you kind of have to, but on the other hand, it's kind of a, like, you know, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to.
Right.
Who wants to get hate on the internet? Nobody wants to get hate on it.
But when I did a post, I made that post about identifying as a trans vaxxite, and, you know, oh, they let me have it. They came at me in the witch hunt. They came at me in the mob mentality. They were calling me names, you know, and I had to actually sage extra that weekend. I do a lot of like energy tools, and, you know, I just have a lot of things, natural elements around me to help me, you know, stay in my own self and not get pulled into their, you know, whatever they wanted me to. Because they were saying a lot of nasty things, and there was like over 150 comments or something like that. But I didn't respond, because I know there's no arguing with a liberal, you know. And I just kind of just told them, hey, I'm saying what I'm saying. I just want you guys to all come out, identify yourselves, and unfollow me. You know, that was really to liberate myself from the indoctrinated knitters. And, you know, it's funny because one of my personal friends actually came on and joined the mob and the witch hunt.
Oh, wow.
So that was interesting, but it made a lot of sense, because this person actually lived in the jungle with her family for, I want to say, about 15 years. Her children had never been in this, has never lived in the States. They moved back in, I believe, 2015, 2016, no, I'm sorry, 2017. They moved back to the States. And now they're fully indoctrinated. So it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to be indoctrinated under this program. Her kids are trans. You know what I mean? Like they were in a bubble, in a jungle. They didn't like associate with anybody, not even in their jungle life. So when they moved to the United States, I watched them become fully indoctrinated. It was very interesting, in a very short time too. So, you know, you have to be careful with what your kids are exposed to here, because it's everywhere. It's through the media, it's on TV, it's the celebrities, it's school, it's everything.
Yep.
So that's another thing that was very interesting to witness in the last couple years, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And what you were talking about before with the sort of nasty comments, and you were talking about earlier about never really meeting a racist, because when you're one-on-one in person, you can talk and you can find common ground. When you're nasty commenting on the internet, it is, I won't say impossible, but pretty near it to be like, okay, guys, hey, what's the issue? Let's talk it out. Let's do stuff. And it's just the sort of mob mentality.
Right.
It's so difficult.
Right.
So we were talking about, your trans back site post.
Oh yeah.
Right. Trans
That
back
was,
site.
Yeah, that was a
So-
heavy one.
Right. And all of the sort of hate you're getting after that and everything.
Yeah, but it was very
Yeah.
liberating. It felt really good to just get it out there. And they did exactly what I knew they would do, which was come in mob mentality. And then I had a couple friends actually try to engage and actually have a conversation about it, but they would come back with their hypocrisy and, you know, just not being open to a real conversation, and just very accusing, and just trying to tell me, you know, who I am and what I feel and what my beliefs were. So I, told my friends, I privately messaged them and say, hey, don't even try to engage with these people. It was funny because once they would try to engage with them, the first response, and it was almost like it was a bot thing. The first response was, oh, you're defending a racist or a transphobe, so
Right.
so
And you're like,
they go into the labeling.
right.
So,
Right.
so that makes people, oh my God, am I associating with a racist or a transphobe? Like nobody wants to.
That's why they do it. There are
Exactly.
things that you cannot, if they call you a homophobe or a racist or a xenophobe, it's a hard concept to refute, because what can I do to prove to you that I'm not? I can't do anything. So that's
Right.
why they are so liberal with those terms, because what are you going to do in response?
Exactly.
You're a transphobe by using that phrase, even though anybody with a brain knows that it was a joke.
Mhm.
Like it was if everybody else can do this, then I can say I'm vaccinated.
Yes.
Like it's not a
Yes.
yeah.
I wasn't really trying to emphasize on that word, but just the point of, well, if anyone can identify as anything, this is what I'm identifying as,
Right, exactly.
So yeah. And yes, I wanted to point out the hypocrisy as well, which, I feel that I did. So, and then, I was going to do, and I probably will do this after this interview, but I'm going to do another post just to reintroduce myself, and just kind of do a short brief on, my journey and where my views and I guess politics are now.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. I personally have done very well with the whole political knitting thing, but I know for a lot of people it's a hard place to be, because you just want to go and do yarn and be happy, and they've made everything is so polarized now that it's really difficult. It's really
Right.
You're either us or them, or with us or against us. There's not a lot of gray area anymore, which
Right.
makes it difficult.
Right. Well, there's not a lot of tolerance for anything anymore, even though they really emphasize the word inclusive and tolerance. Sorry, I'm going to do that a lot, but I'm just so frustrated by the hypocrisy,
And you were saying a little bit too that a lot of the people who your sort of Ravelry friends from before, and a lot of people who would dye your yarn, are now the ones who've fallen off too.
Yes, they probably burned my yarn. And one of
Dyed
them,
it black in solidarity.
well, this is how indoctrinated I was, though. I did a yarn colorway for one of the people that has the biggest platform for indoctrinating the knitters. So I feel really bad about that. Like, gosh. And during the whole process, it didn't really feel right to me too. So I should have listened to myself and my instincts about that one,
Right.
you know. But now we know better, we're gonna do better, right?
Yeah, and in hindsight's always 2020. It's always easy to be like, I should have seen that giant flag. But when you're in the middle of something, it's so much harder to identify that, or maybe you have a bad feeling about it, but you think, oh, it'll probably be fine, or
Yeah.
and looking back, it's easy to be like, whoa, what was I thinking?
Right. When you're in the midst of it, it's hard to see, for sure.
Definitely. And we should definitely give you time to show off some yarn, because I was looking through your shop and you have some of the most beautiful colors, just like
Thank
the
you.
delicate blushing pink sunburst succulent, where it's all this lovely minty green color and then this splash of light pink. Anyways, it's beautiful. So sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Please.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
I know which one too, because I looked hard at that one and then I went, oh wait, it's fingering weight, and I moved away from it.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find that one. Here, I'm gonna dump a bunch of yarn on me right now so I could just go through it. Okay.
Oh,
So
this is our kind of thing. Let's just dump some yarn and like swim in it.
yeah, right.
Hashtag goals.
This might be the one you're talking about. Wait. No, this is not the one. Okay. That's not
Beautiful.
the one.
Anyways, show them off.
Yeah. Well, it's summertime, so this one is inspired by my garden. These are some of the hibiscus and flowers that we have back. It's like this theme. So it's a fun summer color. And then do you guys do anything with the mohair? Because I have quite a bit of mohair too that I'm gonna do some solid colors too. So I have some fun rainbow, multicolored.
That's cool. Something like that, if you pair it with a solid, could be really striking.
Yeah, I think I have done that actually. This is one of my favorite colors. It's super simple. It's just the pink blush, but the sparkles on it are so pretty. So yeah, I mean, most of my yarn is still in the shop. I'm gonna be dyeing some new colors. So yeah, hopefully, maybe I'll have some in before this Saturday too.
Yeah, but you also said you're going to be dyeing some DK. So
Yes.
when that happens, tag me, because I want to know.
I will. Yeah, so I have a lot of DK that I'm gonna do next, because I'm actually knitting more DK as well. Same, I do fingering weight because I live in California. It's so hot where I am. So if I want to wear this stuff, I have to do fingering weight. But it also gets kind of cold during the winter too. So I do like to knit with DK as well. And my daughter actually started crocheting, so she likes the DK weight. So she's going to be dyeing some yarn too. So maybe she'll
that's
tell us some. Yeah.
That'll be fun. Is there anything about your journey or anything that we have not touched on that you wanted to share?
Another thing is, I'm really glad to have found you, or for you to have found me. I knew that there were more knitters out there like us that just want to tell the truth,
Right.
and just from our perspective of like what's actually really happening, and not just a bunch of posts, with the right wordings or so thank you for this connection. I'm glad that there are other knitters out there, and I want to support other knitters and designers as well.
Well, we are glad to have you. And when I first saw your post, I didn't know where you actually fell on the spectrum, but it's nice when you see somebody I said this to you before we started recording. We don't have to agree with everything. Like for me and you and Anne to get along, we don't all have to have the same exact beliefs. And
Right.
you were posting a true statement, and I wanted to support you because there's so many people who are going to come out and tell you what a terrible person you are.
Right.
And, you know, if you don't like Trump or you don't like, we don't all have to agree. And that's the part that has really just been lost.
I know. And that's another phrase is our differences is actually what makes the world great. You know, because if we're all the same, what else is there left in life if we're all the same? You know? So yeah, our differences is what makes us all beautiful and unique. And yes, we don't have to agree. We don't have to have the same beliefs. You know, we don't have to live the same lifestyle. You can completely honor someone else's life and not agree with what they do, you know?
Exactly. And that's the part that's gotten lost. Just because I don't necessarily think that, I don't even want to mention anything specifically, but because I don't agree with something that you think is okay, doesn't mean that we have to hate each other. And that's what this whole thing has brought us to, is that if we're not in lockstep, then I hate you. And it's just not, it's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right. And in fact, you know, I might not agree with, you know, what somebody else does or how they live. And it might not be something I do, but I still can have complete respect and honor that person, you know, and know that whatever they need to do in their life for healing or to navigate the world, so be it. You know, just because I might not choose to do that, or I might not, you know, it might not fall along in alignment in my path. That doesn't mean I don't honor somebody else in their, you know, journey. So it's really bizarre to me that humans have lost sight of this. Like we're all just supposed to be in this one perfect curated box, you know? So we got to get off that.
Because it's not on my path doesn't mean I don't respect it. And that is like, that needs to be a meme now, or a thing, because that's exactly the problem. That is, you got it just in a nutshell. You know, I have certain beliefs in my life. That's my path, and you have, and that's okay. And I'm just so tired of all this fighting.
I know.
And I mean, also, you know, before we had you on, so I was looking through your Instagram, and you know, you talked about that you had the pro Black Lives Matter post, and then later you had the trans backside post, and I'm like, okay, so it looks like you had a shift in ideology, but at the same time, maybe you didn't. And you know, maybe, you know, again, not having talked to you yet, I'm like, you know, maybe both of these you believe in them simultaneously, and that's okay too. Like they don't, you know, there's beliefs that are brought into different categories, but if they mix, that's not necessarily wrong. You know, you could, right. I mean, you could have you can have a friend who's into medical freedom, but also holds beliefs that you don't hold. But you know, that's okay. You can agree with them on some things and agree to disagree on others and talk about it, and that's all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely somebody that came from one spectrum and now I'm on this side. Right. You know. So but I still see that, you know, it was all kind of important, and it had to happen the way that it all came about for me, you know. So like you said, just because it's not exactly like how we depict things or how we want things to go, things will come into play, and it's still okay, you know, because I never wanted to be a part of like the whole Black Lives thing and indoctrinated into that, but in a sense it did show me, you know, the truth in another form. So
right.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, everything that you go through brings you to where you are. And so, you know, we all have different experiences, and it shapes who we're going to be. And so, yeah, nobody wants to be indoctrinated, but I'm glad that you have come through the other side and that you've joined us.
Yes, me too. Me too. And
we're very happy to have you here.
yeah, I mean, and when I was indoctrinated, it was really funky for me. Like I felt very uncomfortable, you know? So I knew something was weird was happening. I just didn't quite know what, you know? So yes, very happy to be here. Thank you. You know, thank you for even letting me know that the space was even here, and that, you know, yeah, there are a lot of knitters that, you know, in this space, and we're not here to judge, and we're not here to put people in boxes, and we're truly here for tolerance, you know.
Yeah. And I think that there's actually more of us than even show up on like Instagram and things. I think a lot of people are still scared to talk about it, or still scared to get political, or, you know, follow someone who's problematic. And so but I think the more of us that come out and say, hey, we're here, we like you no matter what, it's going to make a difference. All right, so friends, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, because the more you interact with our videos, the more other people find us, which is kind of our goal. So please do that.
Anyways, you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook, Etsy. What's the other one? Lovecrafts. There we go.
Galley Life.
Yep, Galley Life. Yes, of course. And check out Marta. It is Starseed Yarn with underscores in between, and that is both on Etsy and Instagram. And is there anywhere else we can find you?
That's it for now.
All right.
Okay. And I'll link her shop below and her Instagram so you guys can find her easily. And thanks, Marta, for joining us this week. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you both for having me. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.